right, guys, it's that time of the Sons of the Shoe podcast. It's time to assess the Michigan Panic Meter, Spencer. And if you guys missed it last week or on the post-game show, post the Penn State victory, there are five levels to the Michigan Panic Meter. The least level of panic is gray. Then you go to light panic. White is neutral. Light scarlet is your second most panicked. And then finally, the most panicked, scarlet. And I started at light scarlet before the Penn State game. I moved to white. Watching J.J. McCarthy roll the way he did and just look phenomenal, I have to remind myself it's Michigan State. I also am not allowing
this.
Talk
about distractions. That team's got a lot of them, huh?
Good Lord. And then I'm not allowing the distraction of the Michigan sign stealing scandal to move me. I'm staying neutral. I am not moving. I am neutral right now. My panic is nil. And I think I might actually be nil until I see Michigan continue to kick everybody's ass and you just kind of get along. Or if you have a real scare against one of your next 4 games.
I'm going to stay where I'm at, I think, too. Only I'm going to advance the meter slightly more into the light scarlet. We've been talking about this cheating scandal and all this stuff, and you said it earlier in the show, Nick. Like, I could see this being a motivating factor for Michigan more so than anybody. And so, yeah, I think like this just adds fuel to the fire when that game gets circled schedule of, oh, we got Ohio State coming to town. We've beaten them the last 2 years. And now whether or not they had a role in this or not, like, hey, they're trying to take it from us. They're trying to get us in trouble with the NCAA and you know, whatever. So I just wonder if it serves as an extra motivating factor for them. We already know they were throwing up the fours in the first game of the season for like free Jim Harbaugh. Like we know him being missing for a period of time apparently motivated them to really kick the ass of Colorado State or whoever the hell they played. So
I thought that was them bragging about the quality of Michigan women. We got a bunch of fours. No, actually, you know what?
God.
That was such a low-hanging fruit joke. If you've ever been to Ann Arbor, you'll realize, much like Ohio State, there are beautiful women everywhere. And so my fat ass is one to talk.
But those are all Michigan women. That's the thing. A lot of them come from other places. That's what you find out about a college campus. It's like, oh.
Yes, that's how colleges work.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, so I don't know that we can call all the – so if you just go to Michigan and you're an attractive woman, you just automatically become a Michigan woman and you get added to the rating?
So what you're saying is there's a difference between your standard Michigan 7 and a University of Michigan 7.
Yes.
We have to differentiate those two.
Exactly.
You know what? This is why you're the best radio show host in the land, and it's why you tell your 1-year-old son it every chance you get. All right. So that is the Michigan Panic Meter. You guys can send your panic meter, your current status at Nick Wilson says at Spencito _. But let's get to fourth and long. These are 4 things we're going to try and hit real quick. 1, J.J. McCarthy is quite literally the current Heisman favorite. Caleb Williams took a dookie on the field for the second straight week. Michael Penix, not great, Bob. Now, J.J. McCarthy is plus 250.
Big Penix energy.
Big Penix energy. But J.J. McCarthy plus 250 on the FanDuel app. Michael Penix plus 300. Jaden Daniels of LSU plus 300. And then nobody else is within plus 1,000, I think. Bo Nix is the 4th place guy right now with Jordan Travis at plus 1,200. Are you buying J.J. McCarthy as the real Heisman favorite?
Yeah, I think he has to be at this point. He's obviously putting up some big numbers, some gaudy numbers, and I mean he's got Michigan rolling. I think it was Penix before or after the Oregon game a week ago, and then I think Washington. He didn't play well, but Washington had a little bit of a. They still won the game, but they had a little bit of a.
But it wasn't pretty,
right, against Arizona State. So I think that sort of took him down a peg. That doesn't mean he can't get back up there. I think he's still, if Washington runs the table, if they win the Pac-12, if they make the College Football Playoff, I think he's very much still in the conversation. But yeah, I think even though it pains me to say J.J. McCarthy probably gets the nod right now. Granted, hey, what's the streak of guys who have won the Heisman and their team hasn't won a national championship? So maybe it's a good thing for Ohio State if he wins the Heisman.
All right, that's Ohio State fanboy spin, and I will allow it today because we got the fear with all the other Michigan stuff.
Is that spin worse though than the look at them cheating and yeah, take their wins and make Jim Harbaugh go away? There's no way it's worse.
Nothing's worse than that. Nothing is worse than that. So here's the thing. JJ's the FanDuel favorite as the Heisman favorite, and he still has 2 premier games. If he goes to Happy Valley and plays the same way, I mean, he's going to come into the Ohio State game as the odds-on favorite. Like, not just favorite, but maybe runaway favorite. The whole Heisman conversation for JJ specifically could come down to that Ohio State game. So I think he's got 2, he's sitting in a catbird seat is what I'm saying. And if he plays the way he did the first 7 games of the season, the next 4 games or the next 5 games, he is going to seal this thing up. And honestly, he deserves it. He's fantastic. He's the best Michigan quarterback in a very long time. And honestly, he's the best pro-ready Michigan quarterback. Everyone's talked about Caleb Williams and Drake May from the pro side of things. J.J. McCarthy's probably in that conversation. We move to second and long here. All right. Is Iowa still the favorite to come out of the West?
No, I think it's got to be Wisconsin at this point. Granted, they lose to Ohio State this weekend. They'll have the same number of losses in the Big Ten. So I think, right? Does Iowa have 2 losses in the Big Ten? I have a, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I just pulled it up.
I'll be honest with you. I'd rather it be Wisconsin, Minnesota, or Nebraska than Iowa. I don't want to see that defense.
I don't want to see that. Yeah, that's fair. I don't want to see. Frankly, whether Ohio State makes the Big Ten championship game or not, I just don't want to see Iowa. Like, that team is so miserable to watch. It's the worst. It's the worst brand of football in 2023 I've ever seen in my life. I hate it.
Okay, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I don't want to see it because they actually could beat Ohio State with that defense. Although, if the refs just keep jobbing Iowa out of late game touchdowns, what happened with Cooper DeJean was one of the worst travesties. And I think Kirk Ferentz is a boob. I think Brian Ferentz is a set of boobs.
Bigger boob.
I gotta, and actually that's not fair because I like a set of boobs. So I just think I thought it was embarrassing. But I'm not gonna turn this into the Cooper Gene apology hour, DeJean rather. We move to third and long here. How much does the revenge factor matter this weekend for Luke Fickell, year 1 at Wisconsin?
I don't think it's much. I think Luke Fickell, because here's the thing, not that he doesn't want to win the game and he's going to go oh, these are my buddies at Ohio State. But I think he understands the situation and kind of how things played out. And I think he is able to, he strikes me as the kind of person who can at least compartmentalize certain things and realize hey, I'm happy with the situation I'm in. Of course we want to beat them, but that door is always open. I don't think it's there's this ill will towards Ohio State where he's never want to go there again, never want to touch foot on the campus, hate that place. They did me wrong. I think he knows that there's always going to be kind of an opportunity for him to maybe get there one day or get back there one day. And if it happened, I'm sure he would take it. So I don't know that he's looking at it that way. I'm sure he feeds that to his players because these guys use anything as motivation. But I think internally in his heart of hearts, he doesn't have some deep seated hatred, revenge, fear, or feeling for Ohio State.
I think it's a motivator for Luke Fickell. I don't know how much his players would care. You know what I mean? These players were 10 when Luke Fickell had his 1 year at Ohio State, the Fickell year, 6 and 7. So I just don't know. I think it would mean a lot for Luke to win. And I think it'd be a huge win for him at Wisconsin, year 1 at home. You're probably not going to do more than make the Big Ten title game at best. This would put you in the perfect position for that, by the way. But I don't know that the revenge factor matters, but in the minds and hearts of this Ohio State fan, it still scares the bejesus out of me. And that moves us to our fourth and long of our 4 questions impacting Ohio State and the playoff road ahead and the Michigan road ahead. Do you want the sign-stealing saga and scandal to be the end of Jim Harbaugh in Michigan?
There's always going to be the fan who's to be the best, you got to beat the best. So I want Jim Harbaugh to stay so that one day we get back at him and blah, 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 blah. So I know where you're going with this take now that you're pointing to yourself. But dude, I always subscribe to, you don't have to apologize for anything. If this forces Jim Harbaugh out and he leaves and then you own Michigan for the next 10 years after it, like, that's not your fault. That's his decision. That's what happened. Like, you'll take the win how you'll get the win. Same thing I said about, hey, you'll take the Notre Dame when they had 10 guys on the field instead of 11, and you're not going to apologize for it. You don't have to, you're unapologetic for winning a football game. So if it leads to his demise, which I think it probably does, and that's probably the more important thing to keep your eye on here, then, if he's going to get suspended or something like that, then, so be it. And it probably does bode well for Ohio State down the line. It sucks that he kind of owns you towards the tail end here, but you always have the Urban Meyer days to look back on.
I feel like a parent who just figured out their kid won a spelling bee by cheating. Like, I feel like screaming, well, not like this, Timmy. Not like this.
Jim Harbaugh leaving isn't cheating for Ohio State. It's just the circumstances that happened.
But I don't want it like this.
If I'm in a spelling bee and somebody yells out the last 3 letters I need on the word, how is that my fault? I didn't look to cheat, but it just happened.
The word is stallions, as in Connor Stallions. No, my point is, the rivalry just got good again. And I think if this was 2 years ago, Ohio State fans would be like, no, keep Harbaugh here. And a lot of that would be because the games were close. Yeah. But now, because Ohio State's lost 2 straight, they're puckering and they just want any excuse to be Ohio State again. And to me, and this is not Ohio State fans, this is the greater psychosis that comes with being a blue blood school. I don't want it like that. I want this. I want Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day in the trenches for the next 10 years. And I would love it if Ohio State could swing it back in their favor for the next 2 matchups. And so all of a sudden the pressure's back on Michigan. Like, we're back to seesawing. And it feels like they're on the right end of the seesaw. You win in Ann Arbor this November, and all of a sudden the seesaw swings dramatically back to your favor because you're probably undefeated and going to the playoffs. Like, I love it, man. Like, the rivalry's back. Yep, I'm a little uncomfortable on game days watching them and watching Ohio State.
It is good for the rivalry. It is good for the rivalry. I agree with you on that. Like, like, you want those 2 teams to both be good and sort of pushing each other back and forth, and that makes it way more fun than just getting boat raced one way or the other every single year. So I'm with you on that, but I just can't. I'm not going to be apologizing for Jim Harbaugh leaving. Like, if that's what he wants to do, and it means that Ohio State has a little bit of an easier path, then, like, so be it, I guess.
You know where I'd like to see Jim Harbaugh next year?
The Bears?
Cleveland Browns. Just kidding. That's the end of the podcast. That's the end of the podcast.
It's not a Browns podcast. We can't explore to the next episode.
Not doing that. I guess that take never happened. Make sure, guys, we are going to be post-game Ohio State, Wisconsin. We're going to get that right up and out there for you guys after the 7:30 game.
It'll be late.
It'll be late. Okay. We're going to look haggard. That's usually how I look. It has nothing to do with the time. That's just what time and drugs have done to me. Time and booze is the better way to put it. But make sure to check us out. Again, follow us, rate us, subscribe us on all the great outlets there, whether you find your podcast or on your video feeds. Spencer, go Bucks.
As always, Nick, go Bucks.